we're very fortunate tonight to have the Executive Director of the Fairfax Falls Church CSB. He's been a good friend to NAMI over the years, and he's a good friend to both the consumers and the families in the mental illness. Mr. Bronstein's going to speak about system transformation for mental health and alcohol and drug abuse services. So please welcome Mr. George Bronstein.
Thank you. That was very kind. I'm glad you're going to have Jeannie Cummings coming next week. Jeannie's new to the CSB, but she's been in the field of developing housing for people with disabilities for years. Had primarily worked in the private sector. I was asked to talk about the CSB transformation, but let me first. I hope I don't repeat something that you've heard a lot about, but let me just clarify what you have here in Fairfax Falls Church Community Services Board. It is the largest community service board in the state. There are 40 of them. It serves over 20,000 people a year. And it provides services to people who have mental health problems, people who have substance use problems. It provides services to people with intellectual disabilities. It also provides services to infants who have developmental delays. I don't know if people know that, but we have an infant program that serves over 1,000 infants and families. We also, because very few people we serve have one problem, we find ourselves serving many people with other types of disabilities. We serve people with physical disabilities in our programs. We serve people with autism. We serve people who have one of our disabilities and also have traumatic brain injury. So I can tell you that our programs and our services are really broad, and there's a lot. We anticipate that within another couple of years that we're likely to be the single point of entry in this area for people who have just autism or just other types of developmental disabilities. And that is because the state of Virginia doesn't have any other statewide way of dealing with the needs of populations that need a public sector point of entry and coordinated services. The CSBs are in the state of Virginia, unlike in other states, are very unique in that the state hasn't really developed individual service, individual disability areas under each disability that are separate. It has had the advantage of serving people who have these multiple problems, but it also has ended up being that there is only one of our type. There isn't any place else that you can get a statewide public policy and implementation of services except through the Community Service Board. All that being said, Fairfax is the largest by far. I think the next largest in Hampton, Newport News is a little bit more than 1/3 of our size. So we're that much larger than any other. And a lot of that has to do with the local government being willing to contribute money. But when I came here 2.5 years ago, I came here with a mandate from the local government, from the Community Service Board, and that mandate is partially based on the Beeman Commission. Is everybody here familiar with the Beeman Commission? Fairfax County established a commission before I got here. That commission was established in the wake of the shootings of those police officers. And that commission was established to look at the mental health system in Fairfax County and make a determination of ways it could improve. They brought in people who had national reputations for knowing the services. They came up with a series of recommendations that are, many of which are driving the transformation, as we're calling it, that we are doing. And I'm going to speak to that transformation, but I'm also going to say to you that actually I spent years being a service provider in the field, providing services to people with mental illness and people with mental health problems, and those are different. I worked in the inner city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, worked on the streets, contacting people who are homeless, making sure they were getting medications, helping them get housing, helping them get entitlements if they were eligible. So I know that part of the field. But I also was in private practice and had paying customers who would come in and pay me for psychotherapy. So I've done both sides of the mental health field, and I do understand that. But when I got into administration, it became clear to me that most mental health systems had a lot of very well-educated, very well-meaning people, but they weren't always organized to be as efficient as they could be, and they weren't always organized to ensure that the people who were getting the services were getting what they wanted and needed. And it wasn't because people weren't willing to give them what they wanted and needed. It was a lot of times that systems were designed around regulations and codes, and fulfilling code responsibilities, especially in the public sector, and they weren't designed around the customer. And so as I got into administration, both in the private and the public sector, I've worked around the idea of helping the system become more efficient, more responsive, and more effective in a variety of ways, while still meeting our code responsibilities, but not focusing on them. And that's what we're moving towards here in Fairfax, what we did in some other places that I've worked, including another CSB in this state. And I'm going to go over a handout that I brought with me that kind of outlines what our transformation is about. So I'll go over this, and then I'm going to leave it open for questions. And obviously the questions can be about anything, but since I've been asked to talk about transformation, that's what I'm talking about tonight.
Want me to have this out?
Yeah, if you could, or
I'll
take
figure it out.
them and pass them around. Thank you. Thank you. Am I speaking too loud? Is this too loud? That's all right. The overall transformation of the Fairfax Falls Church Community Service Board is going to focus on ensuring that certain things are in place for everyone who walks in the door. And you'd be surprised at how often it is that the people who need the support and the services are not the individual with the mental illness or the substance abuse problem, or any of the disability, it's as often the family that needs the service. And that's the point of this. The change is about making sure from the moment you walk in that we're responsive to your needs. So, when you walk into our system, our eventual goal, now I grant you we're not totally transformed. This is our goal, but we're moving in this direction, is we have expertise on serving mental illness, but we're not going to label you in order for you to get service. We're going to eliminate silos, because what we found is that some people will not come to a clinic serving mental illness. They will come and get help from someone who they feel they can trust. There are people who have multiple problems and they don't know which door to enter into our system. So we're going to save them the problem and have one single front door. And we're already moving towards a single front door of our system where one phone call gets you one assessment and gets you all the services that you need. It sounds so simple, but it is not simple, because we have so many different types of services and so many different kinds of people we serve. We are making sure that people who need some form of case management or help navigating our system have it right at the front door. Again, what we found is that sometimes one of the hardest things to do when you come in to a large organization is to figure out where to go and how to access all the things that you need. So, for example, we have already established a new system for doing administrative intakes that is much more customer friendly and that offers people opportunities to understand all the possible entitlements that they might be eligible for and helps them get signed up for them sooner. That's an example where instead of making people sit for hours at a social services office, waiting for their number to be called, we get them started right away upon entry into the system. We also answer questions for people, because there are times that when you go into a system like ours, like you go into Woodburn or you go into our Gartland Center on the south side, when you go in there, you're not sure who you should talk to, what your need is, how to get all your needs met, but you have a child who needs services too. And that happens where you need more than one service. We're going to make sure that everything gets answered at that front door. So what does all that mean? And these are the standards we're working on implementing through the system. And let me make it clear. And Marcia, who happens to be here today, is a good example of that. We have a lot of very caring and very professional and skilled people working for us. And it wasn't that we needed to add professional, caring, skilled people in our system. We have them. What we haven't done is taking full advantage of that professionalism and skill. And Marcia, again, is a good example of that, because until we make our full transformation, she has a lot of administrative duties, so she can't focus and concentrate on serving people, which is what she's been trained to do. We have become inefficient by the very nature of the fact that we don't allow our people to just do what they're trained to do and do as much of it as they can.